Hello guys, my name is Clara Barton, and I am best remembered as an educator, a nurse, and also the founder of the American Red Cross. On top of, I was the very first president for that organization. It all started when I was born on December 25th, 1821 in Oxford, Massachusetts. I believe that I found my calling at a very young age. It started out first when I tended and cared for my brother David after he had a really bad accident. It quickly moved to the desire to teach when I became a teacher at a very young age of 15. After that, I later opened my very own free public school in New Jersey in 1853, where I was able to continue my teaching. In 1854, I decided that I wanted to seek warmer weather, so I decided to leave New Jersey and head south to Washington, D.C., where I was able to get a job as a clerk in the patent office. I worked there from 1854 until 1857, when I decided that I could no longer work there because my anti-slavery opinions just made it too controversial for me. I left and went back home to New England, where I continued some of my charity works on top of caring for my sick father. My life really changed in 1861 when I returned to Washington, D.C. when the Civil War first broke out. I was one of the very first volunteers to appear at the Washington Infirmary to care for these wounded soldiers that were sick in need of help. I knew as soon as the war broke out that I needed to help these soldiers in any way that I could. After my father died in 1861, right after the war very first broke out, I knew that I needed to do more. I finally decided that I needed to leave these city hospitals, and I went to be on the battlefield with the soldiers side by side. While I was in the field, I sought to help the soldiers in any way that I could. This included mentally, spiritually, or giving them supplies such as food, water, bandages, or anything else that I had that could help them. Being a spiritual woman, I wanted to show these men that they were not alone in all of this. God was looking out for them and always had eyes on them throughout this whole entire process. I felt like this was my calling from God to pass this message on to them so they had a little bit less stress going through all this. I was not content serving from the sidelines anymore. I finally got my call to serve as a nurse in live combat in 1862. I headed to Fredericksburg, Virginia, where I cared for these soldiers in the War of Antietam. This is where I got the nickname the Angel of the Battlefield. This was a very special nickname for me. The men I cared for were scared, wounded, and very sick. As a spiritual nurse, it was up to me to give them comforting care and be by their side throughout all of this. In 1865, the war was finally over, but my job was not. I went to work for the War Department, where I helped reunite missing soldiers with their families, on top of giving families some closure. It was very scary for me sometimes to be on the battlefield in live action. I knew that God would also look out for me as he did for the soldiers fighting. My care for all the soldiers was what I needed to do in order to care for myself. If I knew that I was saving lives and comforting others, I was content in the care for myself. I knew without a doubt that this was my calling and that God wanted me to do this for others as he would. I decided to continue my calling in 1881 when the American Red Cross was founded. I was the very first president of this organization. As its leader, I oversaw the assistance and relief for victims of disasters and major disasters such as the 1889 Johnson flood and the 1900 Galveston flood. Looking back on my life and everything that I did, I don't think that I would change anything about it. I had good times and bad times in my life, but I feel like I helped a lot of people. My calling from God was the nursing care for the sick and wounded in this tragic war. I got to help others on so many different levels. I believe I fulfilled my calling to help others, and I was able to leave my mark on history for many more nurses to come after me.